Not Titles podcast is brought to you by Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results.
Hello, this is Steve Kemp with the People Not Titles podcast, and I'm so grateful today to be speaking with my good friend Bryce Fuller, who is a real estate broker with Baird Warner in Glenview, but he serves the whole Chicagoland area. So Bryce, thank you for being with us today, and I'm really excited about talking
Thanks,
to you.
Steve. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So Bryce, let's get right into it.
Okay.
Let's talk about your real estate journey. I know it's kind of in your blood, in the DNA of your family. And so talk a little bit about how your, was it your father or your parents, both, that had a real estate brokerage, and let's get into that.
Let's go back, let's go way back. Way back, my father first got into real estate. He was looking for a profession to go into, and he figured out that there's three things that humans need. Right? They need food, they need clothing, and they need shelter. Those are the three things so he figured that there would always be a job if you could provide one of those three necessities.
Wow. That's
basic. That's very basic.
Yeah.
And so he chose homes and shelter and real estate. Through that, he educated himself quite a bit.
What year was that he started?
Oh, gosh, probably in the 70s.
Okay.
Probably 72, 73.
All right.
No, even earlier than that, because it was a couple of years before I was born. So
okay.
And then he got his license. He worked with the old Kennigan Stray that was here, and then he ended up opening his own brokerage. And he worked out of the spare bedroom in our house. And when he did that, then my mother came on board, and she would take all the new clients, and my father worked with his existing clients. They expanded that, and then they moved out of the house. So
how long did it take them to move out of the house?
A few years.
Okay.
I feel like it was probably about 3 years.
Okay.
3 years.
And did your dad have examples of entrepreneurs in his life, or was this something that he kind of like changed in the trajectory of the family?
So my grandfather, his father, was a publisher of a magazine. He was a journalist by trade, and he got into and he opened up his own publication. Two different publications. One was for campgrounds, which I think is called Sam Good today. You may have seen it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He started. It was called Woodall's, and it was the precursor to Sam Good, and he was purchased, and then they were purchased by Sam Good.
Okay, so your dad's dad was an entrepreneur in many respects.
That's
okay,
right.
Great.
And then he also was a publisher for a unexplained, like UFOs and ghosts. He had a magazine about those things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Called Fate magazine.
That's great.
Yeah.
So would you, and just looking back, is your dad still alive?
No.
Okay.
He just recently passed away in his condo in Mexico. Thank you.
Okay. So would you call your dad a natural born salesperson, or was it something that was it more of method than it was charisma or talent for him?
I think that my father appealed to a certain type of person. He was very into the creativity of real estate, much less into helping people buy and sell real estate.
Okay.
He was more into the investment side of it. At one point, my parents together owned, I think, somewhere between 10 and 15 houses in this one specific area of Northbrook.
Okay.
And so he was very into that. And
so isn't it the financial aspect,
the
benefits, even beyond home ownership, to the value of real estate as an investment for your financial future?
That's exactly right. So he was very into that.
That's pretty cool, actually, yeah.
And then my mother sort of worked on that. They got divorced they got separated when I was in 6th grade, 5th or 6th grade. And they kind of went their separate ways, even though they were still owning this brokerage together.
Wow.
And she really focuses much more on listing and selling. And he continued kind of trying to identify investors and helping them kind of buy their investments.
And so as a young person, how did that shape you?
I hated real estate.
Really? Wow.
Hated it because that's all we sat around the dinner table and talked about.
Okay, and probably holidays were broken up by showings or whatever it was.
Right,
You had to sit in the car and go here and go there type of thing.
When they invested in real estate, they would bring me with while they were rehabbing.
Okay.
So I was, I had a hammer in my hand and I was breaking down walls and stuff like that. And so I grew up around it, and I just didn't like it because it monopolized everything.
Okay. So did you kind of make up your mind as a person that was choosing careers, saying, okay, anything but real estate?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. And here we sit.
Today.
Yeah. So what was that? So what did you do, and then how did you get into real estate?
So I went to University of Illinois. I got a degree in marketing, and I really wanted to become like a brand manager for a company like Procter & Gamble, the case studies that you do in business school. And I ended up getting a job working in channel marketing with US Robotics, a technology company. And then we got acquired by 3Com. 3Com took that next year that they had acquired US Robotics and had me travel all over the West Coast. And I was making presentations with my 3Com counterpart. At the end of that year, they gathered all the US Robotics people, the original US Robotics people, and said, thanks so much for your help. We got it from here, and they let us all go at once. Now, I was 23 years old when this happened.
Wow.
So I was very young.
Blindsided.
Totally blindsided, but it didn't affect me emotionally because I was
you didn't have a house, family, kids, everyone crying at home,
That's right.
that kind of thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I saw people my age being affected by that and how horrible it really was. And so I vowed I would never work a corporate job again.
Wow.
And
that's a big awakening for a young man.
Yes, and I also decided that this was not what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be in, like I said, I wanted to be a brand manager. I wanted to do something creative. And I decided to get a second degree, and I went and got a film degree. So I went and lived in Hollywood for 3 years and got another bachelor's degree in screenwriting and played the Hollywood game for 3 years.
Okay.
Got engaged and married while I was out in LA.
Okay.
And after
so
3 years,
you met Lori. Did you meet Lori in LA?
No, I actually met her here.
Okay.
She knew me for 1 month while I was still employed at 3Com. So,
Okay.
So she met me. I had a job, and then
wow.
And then
okay. That was exciting for her dad, I'm sure.
Yes. Good prospects with that guy. And so after 3 years, the money, I was writing freelance. I had optioned a couple of screenplays. I'd won a couple of awards, but the money is very small out there. It is the difference between the have and have-nots in Hollywood is dramatic.
You either make it or you don't.
It's very much
like baseball or something like that, probably. That you can ride on a AAA bus forever, never make any money. Or
That's exactly right.
Jackpot.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So I was on that AAA bus, and after 3 years, I had kind of had enough. The money ran out, and I ended up getting a job working door-to-door sales for a temp services company
in Hollywood,
in LA.
Wow.
Okay.
So were you discouraged at the time, Bryce?
I was a little frustrated. I don't know about discouraged.
Okay.
It was I didn't really love the people out there in the industry.
Yeah.
And so, like, when people read People magazine and stuff about entertainers and stuff,
all BS.
They're all it's all garbage.
Yeah.
These are not really great people out there, and so I'm not interested in their lives.
Yeah.
Out there, it's always what can you do for me? It's very not collaborative. So, anyway,
so you're selling door to door now.
So,
what are you selling door to door?
Temp services.
Okay.
So I would just knock on doors and say, "Do you use temps?" And if they did, I left my card, and then I would go back to the office, put them in my database, and start calling them. Okay. After about 3 months, I had a very good business going.
And so, Bryce, I'm thinking you have your marketing experience, and then you're a screenwriter, so you have some storytelling experience. And so are you leveraging this like intentionally for your success in door-to-door selling? like, were you intentional about it at the time? Like, I'm taking all of my experiences and really bringing it to this next thing?
It wasn't so much intentional as organic.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that it came
Looking
out.
back at it,
Yeah.
you can say, yes, it did.
Yeah. So, for example, I would leave I would create a crossword puzzle that had a bunch of employment terms. My little business card at the bottom, and they would sit, and it would just sit on people's desk. There wasn't any selling involved. It was just, if the person had a few minutes, they would fill out a crossword puzzle.
It was branding in some ways.
It was very much like branding.
And the reason I asked that is I think a lot of people look at like transitions from one thing to the next, and I spent all this time in college, and they look at it as like failure that is like of time irretrievably spent, or you can't get it back and all that. And what I see is that all of this is kind of the ladders to where you're heading, and I think people should look at it a little bit more like that and carry with them all of their experiences.
You need to grow off of each experience and bring it with you. And there's no failure. It's just experiences.
Absolutely.
So,
love it.
So anyway, I was very good at that. And one day I was sitting having lunch before a meeting, and I kind of looked around. I was in downtown LA, and I kind of looked around and I said, what am I doing out here? Because at that point I had stopped writing. I would stop taking meetings. I didn't have time for that. I liked the feeling I was getting as the money was coming in. After not having a whole lot, and then money starts coming in, you're like, this is nice. I kind of feel like I can breathe and relax, and I'm enjoying being able to go out and have dinner, and it's not ramen every night, that type of thing. And so I realized that I had a support structure back in Chicago, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, if I came back, would you teach me how to sell real estate? And she's like, I love you, come back. So I got my license from a test, because I had a degree, a business degree, so I was allowed to just take the test, but I had to study the book. So I studied the book while I was out in LA, took the test, got licensed, sold our place in Los Angeles, and moved back here.
Were you married at the time?
I was.
Okay, so that seems like, somewhere between I don't want to do real estate to that little journey to all of a sudden, what am I doing in LA? Let me go back to home and, where I have family and support. What had you flip the switch about real estate specifically? Was it the interaction that you were having with people in your process?
Actually, you know what? This is very interesting. This is coming right now, kind of off the cuff.
Okay.
One of the things that Lori and I loved to do in LA was go to the mega mansion open houses.
Just walk around, check it
Just
out.
be like, oh my God, this is Celine
How
Dion's
cool is
house.
this?
This is cool, right?
Right.
And they would just open these mansions up, and you could walk through and you would see these spectacular views, and you could make fun of how gaudy something was, or how magnificent, this.
Yeah, this was a good idea, or look how they did this, or whatever.
And so I started to understand the creativity of real estate, the kind of personality and and I liked it. And so while I probably wasn't like completely conscious of it, I thought to myself, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can talk about this.
I can talk about this.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm going to sell something, I might as well sell something that I enjoy.
Yes. Great.
So it goes from being a kid who just hated talking because it monopolized everything, to understanding it. And and meanwhile, throughout this whole time, my parents were still talking about real estate because that's what they did. So I knew all about it before I decided to sell my first house.
Yeah, you saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, and but maybe the bad and the ugly was more pronounced as a youngster. But then as you got a little older, you're like, okay, I see this. I get this. I see the novelty of it, the beauty of it, the shelter aspect, and the creativity, and all of this, and people putting their own personality into every home, and all of a sudden it comes alive for you. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And you know what it reminds me of is that when you kind of think your kids aren't listening, or they're even though you're saying stuff, it's landing even the wrong way. but over time those seeds planted take root, and through life experience and then the seeds planted, something new grows out of it. So
that's probably what happened. It was a little
kind of cool.
subconscious festering in there.
Yeah. So when you came home then, was your mom still owning the brokerage?
She did still own it.
Okay, and so you came home and started working for that brokerage.
I did.
Okay. And did you have success right away when you started selling real estate?
I did.
We're looking for a hard luck story that I was begging for bread, and that's fantastic.
No, I'll tell you what the hard luck was. The hard luck was hard work.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So you came home and were and played scared. You started busting
Yes.
it.
Yeah. Because I didn't have any other money coming in. I had my seed money was the money that I had from selling my townhouse in LA. And it was a good amount, but we also used that money to buy a townhouse here.
Yeah. Move, this, that, expenses,
very expensive.
living, blah, blah, blah.
My mother gave me, every deal that she did, she gave me $1,000. Just so that I had something coming in. And I was a big Howard Brinton fan. Howard Brinton passed away since then, but Howard Brinton had something called Star Power. And what Star Power was something very much like this, where he would interview top agents, he would take their systems, present them, show them the marketing materials that they used, talk about their processes, and I just started replicating those that I felt I could get my head around. So my earliest and most...
Was Howard local?
No.
Oh, okay.
He's a
national guy.
big national guy.
Kind of like Tom Hopkins back in the day? Or?
Yes, that's exactly right. And they were all friends with Howard because Howard didn't do coaching. He presented his stuff and he gave it, and he was dramatically underpriced, and that's probably why I was a part of it, because he was so affordable. But I would get a CD every month and get a newsletter every single month from him.
So you were a student of the business and absorbed the success principles and techniques and tactics of others.
I spent a lot of time in classes. I spent a lot of time listening to CDs and motivational stuff and reading books.
So he would interview people all across the nation. And did you ever decide, I'm going to meet some of these people that he's interviewing?
I have.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're just agents.
Yeah.
Right. And there was something very special about the agents that he interviewed. They were very giving, and they didn't look at the other agents in the industry as being a threat.
That's kind of abundance mindset, right?
Yeah.
Which is there's enough for all of us.
Right. And there is.
Yeah. And
if you're willing to work hard, and if you're willing to be a student of the business, there is enough for all of us. It's as soon as you start having that scarcity mindset, you're right. There's not enough, and you will suffer because you go into it with the wrong mindset.
Okay, so you start having success with your mom and your business, and so then now you're working for a brokerage. So what was that journey from being an independent to then connecting with a brokerage? What inspired that?
I don't think I understand the question.
So your mom owned her business at the time when you came back, right?
So
or did she already?
She was an agent. She was the broker owner of the Remax franchise.
Okay. So
my father was also
okay.
My father was also an owner.
Okay, and that was relatively new because Remax was right. I mean, they were just getting going at that time, right? Or was that?
I think they became Remax probably around 1980.
Okay.
They were about 6-7 years old at that point.
Okay, so they got and so you were a Remax agent at the time.
Yes, I came. Unlike most, I came into this business as a Remax agent.
Yeah, that really is amazing. And so transition from Remax, then where did your team go to?
We stayed there. We were at Remax until from 2000. The Fuller Force, which is the name of our team, started at Remax in 2003, and we were at Remax until 2010. Okay. But as when I talk about that I hustled in the beginning, every 2 weeks I would knock on about 1,000 doors. and I had these little flyers, these little copies of a neighborhood market analysis, and it was just door knock, here's some information about the neighborhood, here's some information about the neighborhood, here's some information about the neighborhood. If you know anybody's looking to buy or sell in here. It was just over and over and over again. And I ended up getting Rookie of the Year that year. I did like 25 deals.
So, okay, so I've knocked on doors before, and there's a feeling that with every door that you knock, until I don't know if it ever completely goes away, but that I wonder who's going to be on the other side of this door, and whether they're going to be pissed off that I'm actually knocking on that door.
And it happens a lot. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Who is that yelling through the door? You know, it happens all the time.
And the first few times that you did it, so what was that? You know, was it uncomfortable for you?
Yes. But you push through it.
You push through it. So that's another great lesson here is, you know, I think the misnomer is that, oh, Bryce has more guts or more this or more that, but the reality is you face the same fear, the same discomfort, the same, I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish it was an easier way than this for me to get my lead. But on the other side of that door, every now and then is someone who goes, Bryce Fuller, I've been looking for you all my life.
Right. And it never happened to me, by the way.
Right.
What did happen was they took the information, they said thank you.
Yes.
And then one day I get a phone call.
Hey, you stopped by.
Yeah, that's right. That's how it works.
Yeah. And then that one time you're like,
yeah,
it works.
That's right. I equate it to imagine a field of rocks. A field of rocks. And under 5 of those rocks, that's 10,000 rocks out there, but under 5 of them is a check for $10,000. When are you going to stop turning the rocks over? When are you going to do it? You're going to do it after you have picked up all 5 of those rocks and you found your checks. You're not going to stop just turning rocks. It's a pretty easy thing to do, is just keep turning rocks until you find your 5 checks for $10,000. That's what door knocking is. That's what phone calls are. That's what all of this is.
Bryce, do you knock on doors anymore?
No, but I do farm still.
Okay. And, you know, this is a key point. You know, I don't even remember Charles Givens, but he wrote a book. I forget what the name of the book was, but it was all kinds of financial principles. And one of the principles was that when you begin something, you have, 90% of your energy will bring about 10% reward, because probably what you're doing does not have the greatest rate of return. You're probably not that good at it, all that kind of thing. So you're working really hard with a lot of activity for low rate of return, kind of the 10,000 and the 5 rocks. But then eventually, as you start getting more savvy, good, people know you and all this, now 10% of your efforts brings you 90% of the.
Yes.
And so, you know, you may not have to knock on doors the rest of your life, but there will be a part of your life that there'll be something equivalent to door knocking.
Yes.
Where you have to do just a lot of grunt activity. It's unattractive, and you know there's very little rate of return, but you get experience, you overcome your fears, and you do have some success. So anyway.
Well, so those door knocking, that started my career because I was 27 years old and people were just starting to think about buying their first homes. And at that point, because I was door knocking, I could show that I had sold houses. I could show evidence of success. And people want to know that.
Yeah, before you go to your friends, they want to know that you're not practicing on them.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Unless you tell them, I need to practice on you.
Yes.
And a lot of them will say, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out together. And it was nice for me because I had my mother working with me. So I would always say, I've always got a more experienced set of eyes on everything that I'm doing. So.
Okay, so fantastic. You're at 2010. Then what happens? So by the way, so you went through the Big Short period, right? Were you good through that, or was that a painful period for you guys?
It was probably the most painful time of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So through my father's mentoring, I had been purchasing real estate and not really understanding how bad it could get.
Yeah, you're purchasing as everything's just climbing, and every
2003,
deal looks
house,
like you're
bought a house 2003, bought a house 2004,
Yep.
bought a house 2005, bought a house in 2006. bought 2 or 3 houses in 2007 because the prices came down a couple of percent, and I was like,
This is great.
This is really good.
Yeah.
And then 2008 hit, and my income halved. And then 2009 hit, and it halved again. So,
and the people that you're probably renting out these properties, and they're floundering, and whatever it is, they're getting caught up in all
that's
of
right.
it too.
And the loans that I was getting were not good loans.
Right. They're adjusting up.
They're adjusting. They're negative AM. They're all just. You just start to get full of yourself, and I did.
Yeah.
And I thought real estate can never go wrong, and I just overexpanded myself. So, so then in 2010, our brokerage Remax, that office kind of folded, and we were acquired by Coldwell Banker. And
so Bryce, during that period of time, so I was in the mortgage business during that time, okay, and so the whole industry was. It was hard to find good news. You come into the office, everyone's like, everyone's in the same boat as you or as I was. How'd you stay positive?
I stayed positive for, so I had Lori and I had a very difficult time conceiving our first child. And the economy's crashing at the same time that we decided that we were going to have a baby. And we went through multiple IVFs and insurance.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People, Not Titles podcast. We are brought to you by our great sponsors, Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results.
Insurance only covered 4, and we were successful on the 4th one. So we had our baby at my daughter in 2008, and she was like the focus of everything.
Yeah.
And everything was going to be okay because I had her.
A lot of gratitude.
You
found something to grab onto that was like, I have something to be thankful for. It isn't all dark.
Right.
There is good in my life.
That's right.
That's great. That's powerful.
And I also got very good at short sales. A lot of agents.
So you pivoted.
I did. You had to.
Yeah.
You had to. And when you start, when I pivoted and I started understanding short sales, I started understanding where even better real estate deals can be had. And so I started, by the way, I just wanted to be upfront that there's some of those houses, I ended up short selling 2 of my own houses and getting 1 foreclosed on. So it was very difficult time. Okay. And I
share your pain.
I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. I was taking the rent money from those to pay my mortgage because I had to survive.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
And so what I believe. So first off, what I would find to be difficult is that you number one, you're participating, so you believed, just like we all did, and you're participating in it, and yet you still have to function. That's your source of income. So you're like double whammied in this. One arm chained by your investments, the other arm chained by your profession, saying, how do I get out of this? And so I know it's a desperate time. And typically, they say whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes. And,
I know it's not the school you would have chosen, but what were the big lessons for you during that period of time that, because now you're hardened, you're a veteran, what are those lessons that you came out of it with?
First of all, there's always opportunity.
I like that.
There is.
Yep.
And you just can't be an ostrich. You can't bury your head in the sand. You have to be able to be open to change. You have to be able to be open to opportunity. And one of the things that I ended up doing was having the single most successful flip I've ever done in my whole life during that time.
Wow.
I will tell the story because
I
got the idea from reading a book. There was like a flipper named Armando Montalombo or something like that. And did
he run Fantasy Island?
Something like that. And he talked about the first flip he ever did, which was a burnout.
Okay.
And so I found how are we doing?
Yeah, great. I just want to make sure that the clock is running. Okay, great. I love it.
So what I did was I was just driving the neighborhood, feeling bad for myself, and I saw that this house had burned, not down, but it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked into it, found out who owned it. I ended up writing them a letter, and it was just a simple letter, and said, I noticed that the house is burned. I would like to buy it from you. I didn't have any money. I want you to understand, I had no money. I want to buy it from you.
You left that out of the letter?
Yes. And, but you can keep your insurance money. Okay. So I bought this house. Some agent ended up writing me back, said, I represent that seller. You and I will work. I'm like, okay, fine. We can work together. And I ended up buying that house for, I think it was $70,000 or $80,000. I got a hard money in Northbrook. I got a hard money loan. This was 2009, I think, 2010 maybe. I got a hard money loan, which is, again, this goes into the creativity of real estate.
Totally.
And you know, I unfortunately think that so many agents out there don't understand all of the different aspects of real estate. I still don't, but there's so many interesting ways you can get involved.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got a hard money loan. I ended up paying like 4 points on it and 10% interest or something at the time, and I don't know what it was.
You knew this was a deal. What's amazing to me is you just kept showing up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though I'm sure there are times where you woke up and just were like, oh my gosh, but you just kept getting out there and doing it.
Right. So I looked at this house and it was burned out. I paid $700, some guy, to trash it out so that you could at least walk through it. You could see the sky through it, and it was all burnt out and charred out, but you could safely walk through the house at that point. And I put it in the MLS, and my description was, this house is burned out. I don't know what to do with it.
Wow.
That was it. Located in town, come and fix it, come do whatever you want to do with it. And somebody bought it in a day for $150,000.
Wow.
And that sustained me and my family.
And your new baby.
And my new baby for 6 months, 9 months,
Wow.
whatever. So
wow.
So it was.
What a blessing.
It was such a blessing. And I still tell that story because it still gives me shivers right now, thinking about it, how that kind of just worked. That hard money lender, by the way, changed, because it happened so fast, he changed his policy. That I had to hold the money for 6 months. I couldn't hold it for a month.
He didn't like that.
He didn't like that at all.
Yeah.
He made his 4 points,
Yeah.
but still, it wasn't.
It wasn't what he was looking for.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so those are great survival stories. There's always opportunity. So now, in 2010, you guys transitioned.
Right. So we moved over to Coldwell Banker, which was a very different
environment.
Very different environment. But my current manager was my manager then. We had met before that. Really inspirational guy, very motivating. He's a fabulous coach. And so I worked at Coldwell Banker under a very corporate environment, which was
much different than Remax, where it's kind of freewheeling, Wild West, do what you want. Everyone's a responsible entrepreneur.
Yes.
And now here it's like structure, almost like, and not like a job, because you still are responsible for generating all your own revenue, but there are some job-like aspects to it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot more you can and can't do this, and a lot more handcuffs about their fees and their whatever. Much less independence. And in order to get anything done, it had to go to the local leadership, then it had to go to the regional leadership, and sometimes it had to go all the way to the national, like New Jersey.
And you guys weren't used to that kind of thing, right? You wanted to move at the speed of business type of thing.
Yes.
You know.
So
how long were you there?
So we were there from 2010 through 2016. So
okay.
six years.
So the market is starting to rebound now, right?
Yes.
And you've come through. I really admire people that have stayed in, because a lot of people shook out during that period of time.
Yes.
And you stayed in, which really probably is really very valuable right now, as we see this kind of tightening of the market. And it's probably like, seeing these road signs before type of thing, and probably gives you a lot of experience for buyers and sellers to understand how to take advantage of opportunities, how to pivot, how to reinvent yourself, whatever.
That's right, and it's very much like I feel frustrated with the current market.
Sure.
But I'm not terrified by it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's maybe it's back to door knocking again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's time to start. I have to find some new clients out there. I've got to. I can't just rely on the same old, same old.
Mm-hmm. That's so well said. All right. So then in 2016, you make another big move.
Yeah. So in 2016, moved over to Baird Warner.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Baird Warner is a very happy medium.
Mm-hmm.
It has
between entrepreneurial spirit,
yes,
and structure.
Structure and kind of powerhouse local branding.
Okay,
is what I would say.
Yeah.
When I was at Remax, the biggest question I had was, I don't see a whole lot of Remax signs around here.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's huge in other parts of the country, but not here in Chicagoland.
Mm-hmm.
I think it used to be bigger, but not so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Baird Warner has got a tremendous foothold in the Chicagoland market. And so I think that a lot of my clients felt very comfortable that I moved over to Baird Warner.
Mm-hmm.
I still, I have freedom to do and perform the way that I'd like to, but I still have a lot of the tools and technology and marketing backing that I wouldn't have if I was on my own.
And your mom's still active?
She's on my team with me still.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And is your mom, is she still out there going and getting it?
She is.
Yeah.
She is.
That's great.
Maybe a little slower pace,
Mm-hmm.
but she's absolutely, she has her own clients, and she's, people call her still from years and years and years ago.
That's a gift, right?
It
to
is.
be with your mom
Yeah.
that long. And what is your other, in terms of your whole team, Bryce, talk about the makeup of your team right now.
So right now it's me and my mother and my wife, Lori. Lori joined me very early, and she was very active with me from 2003 through 2008 until we had my daughter. And now she's really starting to get back into it again as the kids are becoming more and more independent and need her less.
And you have a son as well.
I do have a son.
Yeah.
Big baseball kid.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is Lori's function different than yours? You guys have set functions. Is it basically you're on a team, you're generating business in your own unique way?
So we're all licensed.
Okay.
Lori probably supports me more like on the administrative side, keeping me on track, because my brain is going like this all the time. I'm jumping here, jumping there. She kind of keeps me like, hey, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. She'll also take care of a lot of the responsibilities of the like back office stuff. And she, because she's licensed, she can cover for me if I have 2 appointments at the same time.
That's great. So what is the Fuller brand promise? Like when people get you, what do they get?
I would say that we lead with our heart, and it's not about the deal for us. Our tagline is live a fuller life, helping you live a fuller life. And I think that we kind of came to that in 2008 when we had my daughter, and I realized that home is so much more than bricks and mortar. And that's one of the reasons why, Steve, when I go into these luxury mansions these days, it doesn't do anything for me. That's bricks and mortar. It means nothing to me. It's construction material.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't care where you got it from. I don't care if it's, an antique or if it's the latest material. It's just stuff. But what the home represents means everything to me, which is, this is where your family lives. This is where your memories are made. This is where you gather. This is where you grieve together, and this is where you celebrate together. And I understand how emotional it is. And so when I am selling real estate, I primarily work with sellers. I work. It's probably about 70-30 is my guess. 70% sellers. I understand how emotional it is. And so what you'll get with me is you'll get patience, you'll get understanding, you'll get guidance, and you'll get empathy, because I understand how difficult it is to sell a home, especially one that you have been in for a long time.
So it's not just a deal for you.
No, it's not. And it's never a deal, just a deal for me. And I tell people, I say, you know, my purpose is not just to sell your house, because there's a lot of agents out there that can just sell your house. But I want this experience to be one that you feel comfortable with, that you can look back on and say, you know, that was actually a lot less painful than I thought it was going to be. And with hope that, you know, my client will introduce me to other people who also need that kind of hand-holding, that kind of service. There's kind of two ways of selling real estate. One is like ripping the Band-Aid off. This is a very painful thing and you just need to get it done. And the other way is a long, drawn-out, arduous mental struggle. And I'm up for either.
So one of the things they get with you, Bryce, and we talked about this earlier, is your team, your partners. And I know that we work with your attorneys at our title company. Talk about them and what value they add. I know sometimes the seller has their own, but many times they don't know a real estate attorney. How do you choose your partners and why?
So the two different attorneys that I like to use are David Chang and David Frank. And they're a little different from each other.
Different strokes from different folks.
Right.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I feel very comfortable with is that they always keep me in the loop. They take care of the stuff that I don't want to take care of. So they know what they're doing. That's what they do, is they do real estate, they're transactional.
They're not in court, they're not,
Right.
whatever.
Whenever I see an attorney that does not just do real estate, I kind of groan, I get very nervous.
There's going to be more work for you,
Yes.
potential snafus, everyone's going to get a little mud on their jersey.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is that both of them, they keep me informed as to what they're doing and what challenges they're having, and if they need something from me, it's just a very direct ask. I don't have to try and pull it out of them to figure out what it is that they need from me, whatever help they need. Because if there's like a litigation attorney who's doing real estate, and they all can, but oh my gosh, I have
There'll
to.
be some arguing going on.
It's just not just arguing, but explaining to them, like, if you mess this up, you are hurting your client, because there may not be another buyer behind this one, right? You've got to figure out a way to work with this, and then I see some attorneys who, and I don't mean to tell attorneys their jobs,
Right.
but I see some attorneys who are charging outrageous prices, even by the hour, to do this stuff, and it puts me in a very difficult position between the client and the attorney, trying to tell the client, like, your attorney's not treating you fairly, your attorney's not communicating with me, your attorney's making this whole transaction a lot more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, and and I see when a person like you puts your heart into something so wholly, like real estate, there's passion, there's emotion, that you expect that from everybody else who's going to be engaged with you. If they're not, it's like, come on, let's go. This is serious. This isn't just another deal.
Right.
This is a
right.
person's home. This is where they raise their kids. This is blah 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 blah. Let's lean into this.
Right,
thing.
and sometimes you need kitty gloves or baby whatever.
Kid gloves.
Kid gloves, and sometimes you need to bring a hammer. And I expect the attorneys to know when it's appropriate. And if they don't know when it's appropriate, then you ask me when it's appropriate, because they do have to get involved sometimes. I can't write the legal letters that they write. And so another thing that I appreciate about both of those attorneys are they raise their hand and say, hey, I'm having a challenging time with this situation. How would you handle it? What would you suggest we do? That kind of collaboration is very valuable.
So, Bryce, I see that you're a creative person, that you are an emotional person, but yet there's a discipline side to you that I'm going to get into, and that is the discipline of sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so, was that something that was always part of your life, kind of this discipline, or what?
I am not a disciplined person.
Okay, so that's interesting that you saying you're not a disciplined person, but you knocked on 1,000 doors. And so how did you get to the point where you did the things you had to do, even though you didn't want to do them?
Steve, this is life, okay?
Mm.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
you work out?
Yes.
Do you work out every day?
Yes, I do.
You are disciplined.
Yeah.
I do not work out. I don't work out,
Mm-hmm.
and I struggle with what I eat,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore I struggle with my weight. I struggle with all that, everything that comes along with.
Mm-hmm.
If I valued that more, I would become more disciplined in that era,
Mm-hmm.
in that arena. Sales is the livelihood of my family,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like I always want to provide for my family.
Mhm.
That is the most important thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's important to you.
So it's because that's important to me, I am disciplined in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand exactly what I have to do. I understand that you have to kind of track what you're doing. You have to make sure that you're doing those activities that will end it with the results that you need.
Yeah, there is a stark reality, having done door-to-door sales, having done, sold life insurance at night, almost selling something pays zero.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this harsh measurement. The paycheck is the scoreboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no paycheck, you can have all the reasons why and all the excuses, but the paycheck is still zero, you
Right.
know? And so that is something I see that you learned early. And are you still employed? I know, we're going to get into your new book. I just want, can we get that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I love this. It is the Kick-Ass Real Estate Agent's Daily Action Journal. And so talk about how this was born, Bryce. So this is a lot like, now I understand that this is not like, oh, I need to make some money, even though I haven't done any of this. Let me write about it. Because there's a lot of those experts out there that you can tell the moment they get up on stage, they're just full of crap. They haven't done any of this.
Yeah.
But this is like born out of your activity.
Yes.
And this is a tool I use. Here's how I made it. Here's how I survived the Big Short and every other BS thing that came my way, how I started in sales, and I'm now sharing my process.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
this is
and
great.
It's really, this is just how my brain works.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way that it works is, I'm hyper scheduled, first of all, and so there's an agenda for every single day. But then next to it is a checklist, and the checklist is, did I drink water that day?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Water is something that is so important. Americans are so dehydrated. It provides energy.
You got the water right
I got
there.
this giant water right here.
Love it.
Move my body. I need to exercise.
Yep.
Gives me energy for the day.
Mhm.
I did, by the way, walk this morning, so I
Awesome.
count that. Write 2 things that I'm grateful for every single day. I have to have a positive mindset. So what am I doing?
So what are the 2 things you're grateful for today, Bryce?
Well, I'm grateful for you right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm grateful for this
That's
opportunity to sit here with you.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm grateful for is that my neighbor, he and I have become very, very good friends. And it was kind of a happy accident that we fell into a relationship. He's an only child like I am. He grew up in a similar type of household that I did. He's kind of like a kindred spirit. And he's very successful at his business. And I get to kind of like reflect with him a lot. And we talk about like empowering books that we've read, and we exercise together, and it's just really nice to have a friend like that in my life. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then read, watch, or listen to something positive, or learn something new. Okay, so again, this first part here is just about like getting my mind
Mindset.
ready for the day. And then it gets into the action. how many prospecting emails did I send? How many prospecting texts did I send? How many handwritten notes did I send? How many phone calls did I make? How many social media posts? And then how many videos did I shoot? I get to count this as one, by the way.
Awesome.
And then anything else that I might have done. Maybe I did a mailing. Maybe I did an email blast, or maybe I door knocked, or I had lunch with somebody. And then it goes and talks about other things that I can do for daily appointments, whether it be a presentation, a coffee or a lunch, wrote a contract, showed property. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stay focused on the activities. Notice on here, nothing like, how much paperwork did you fill out?
Yeah. Did you drive grandma to the airport?
Right. None of that is in here.
Right.
It is only focused on those activities that generate business. And if I can stay focused on those activities, it will come. The business will come. As well.
I love it. You're sowing and you will reap, right?
That's exactly right.
And so, Bryce, did you ever open up the page and it's like, I didn't do jack squat today?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And so, but this helps you recover quick, right?
It does,
because everyone has a bad day. Everyone is lazy. Everyone sloughs off. But when you slough off too long, it just, now that's the new habit.
That's right. But even if you do slough off too long, this is still like a blueprint to get back into it.
Absolutely.
So even if I open up a page and I have one check mark there, I did one thing. Well, that's one more thing than I did the day before. Right? Well,
yeah, and I can say, I walked in, what's great is I walked into your office and you had the book there like you were using it.
Yeah.
So you weren't messing around. That is your tool.
Yes.
And it is available on Amazon.
It is.
And so you can buy that. It's called, and we'll have a link to it in our notes. And that is good for a quarter, right?
Yes, this is good for 3 months.
I love it.
Yeah.
So every 3 months you buy one for Bryce.
That's right. That's right.
That's great.
And you can try it out. If you don't like it, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's the road to success is not a straight line, right? And again, it kind of goes like this, right? And you go down high and you go whatever. But as long as you continue to move in the right direction, it will come.
Yeah, I heard the other day someone say, don't confuse the technique with the goal. So what we have there is the technique, right? I do these things, and the goal is I want to sell this much in home or whatever it is. And I think it's important to have our focus on the goal, but if there's no technique and no habit behind it, it's just a dream, it's a wish, it's never going to happen. And there's a lot of people like that don't marry the technique and the habit up with their goal. So
right. What they say is a wish is a goal without the action.
Beautiful. So talk a little bit, Bryce, as we wrap up, about the vision for your real estate business. What do you see as you go into the future? Is it just more of the same, or are you adding to your team, or what is it? Or is the team the core family, and that's enough for you?
That's going to be it for me. I have tried to add buyer's agents. I've tried to add other agents to the team, and I'm not a manager, and so I don't want to manage other people.
Know thyself, right?
Right.
So you know yourself well enough.
And also, if you study real estate, the mega teams out there tend to be less profitable than the smaller or independent agents.
Okay, great.
Because if I spend all my time teaching another agent, then that means that I'm not selling. Right? Now, the percentage that I'm going to get from that agent is much less than, because I have a split with the brokerage, and then I'm going to have a split with the agent, and we just start eating into it. Meanwhile, I've spent all this time with them.
And then eventually the agent says, "Hey, thanks a lot, Bryce.
I know
knowing you."
That's right. Yeah. That happens a lot. But even if I had a mega team with 20 agents, where the only time, and if you've ever read Gary Keller's book, the first one he came out with.
Yeah, I don't recall.
The real estate agent, whatever.
Yeah.
But he basically states in it that the only time that you're finally free is when you replace yourself, and you happen to own the whole team, but you're not working in the team anymore. That's the only time. And that takes a long time, and it takes
That's
a lot
big
of
leap.
It's
Yeah.
it's a big one. And in the meantime, you have to eat and you have to do. And I'm not telling people not to do it. That's just not for me.
Right, it's not for you. And I think, yeah, if you want to replace yourself and not do, you're not looking to replace yourself or get out of it.
Right.
You enjoy being in it.
Yes.
And I think that's a key distinction. So, just to talk about this book just a little bit more, it was kind of born out of the ninja process. Is that right?
Yes, it
Okay.
was.
Yeah.
It
And
was.
so
born
talk
of-
about how were you exposed to ninja and what was that like for you? Was it revolutionary or just help organize the person that you already were, or what was the impact of that?
So Ninja was introduced to me through Baird Warner.
Yes.
And I'm Ninja certified. So Larry
Kendall. Yeah.
Larry Kendall and his program. But prior to Ninja, I was part of Joe Stump's By Referral Only.
Okay.
And he has a very similar type of program. And I just felt like Larry Kendall's tracking was more conducive to the way that I work. And I think that so what I do is I use Joe Stump's messaging about referrals and his heart. He has a ton of heart and care. And you couple it with the process of Larry Kendall's Ninja, and that's how I operate my business. Is this kind of like, you have to do these. So there's a Ninja 9. There's certain things you have to do every single day and every single week. And I just needed a small, because he sells a planner that's like this big and like that thick.
Yeah.
It's just too much. It didn't work for me. I just needed something quick to jot things down on. And that's why I just created this for myself originally and threw it out there. And so whenever I need one,
I love it. I think it's great, and I actually want to design something, and I'll probably consult with you on it for our the way that we prospect for title. But I really like this idea, and I really like that you can. I'm a journaler myself, and I really like the fact that you could probably write on that edge, whatever, January through of 2023, and you can kind of look at it and go, okay, here are some of the things, and even look at some of the things you're grateful for.
Right.
Blah 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 blah.
And then at the very end of each week, each month, and each quarter, you get these final scorecards.
Yeah, the recap. Right?
The recap, so you can go back and.
Did I have a kick-ass week? Did I have a kick-ass quarter?
Yeah, that's right.
I love it.
And it's right there for you, so you can just say, hey, and why didn't you, and what can you improve on for the next quarter?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bryce, I want to say thank you for spending this time. It was really great. I think that anyone who is thinking about a sales career or involved in sales can pick up a lot of principles, and
Appreciate it.
I appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People Not Titles podcast. We are proudly sponsored by Land Trust Title Services. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and we'd love it if you'd share our podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot.